Hello, welcome back everybody. We are today going to continue with our bike tutorial, part 3 I think we may be on. Today we're going to make handlebars. The actual handlebars are quite simple, not too different from when we made the frame of the bike, but we do need to make also the stem. Which is a little bit more difficult, a little bit of a challenge. It's not a huge part of the bike, but actually does take a little bit more work to build. But we get it done. Spoiler, this has been recorded, the audio after the fact, so I can tell you it turns out okay. So here we are. We're going to create our curve first. There was a time that I used to just trace these curves by hand, but I find if you use the bevel on these corners you get a nicer curve. Obviously, it's my eye against mathematics, I'll never win, and I'm quite pedantic, so it's only natural that I would fall over to using the instruments at hand. And then I space out the curve modifier. We add a subdivision here also to smooth out the curve, and then I space the points. I have done a few other projects in the past where I tried to make something follow a path and you get some distortion, some twisting and almost like squeezing, and I read or heard somewhere that it is to do with the points on the curve. If you have a part of a curve where there's a lot of points, it does affect the geometry which is following it. So now it would not have made any difference at all with what we're doing here, but I have come into the habit of trying to space out the points along my curve a lot more evenly. I guess we find out in the future if this is good or not, but it's a good practice to have. So you can see we already have the bottom curve here, which is quite simple, and now we are going for the horizontal curve. It's quite difficult finding reference for a handlebar to try and work out the curve of the top piece. In the end I ended up eyeballing it a little bit, but it seems to be at that it starts to curve right here. So I tried to use our reference here to guess a little bit at the curvature. But when I get into the third or the fourth page of Google trying to find good references of how much curve there is, you do get to a point where you think, well, if I can't find it and I can't see it, it cannot really be so important. So if you do estimate and get as close as you can, then it's going to be fine. No one's going to call you out on it. So here you've used the bevel also to get the curve. I had a little bit more problems with this video. stupidly enough, I think the front view is the left view, and I should have really rotated the objects, because as many times I tried to go to front view and I go into left view. And I don't really know why I persisted with this when I could have just rotated everything to make life easier for myself. So now finally we get this on the curve. And as you can see, except for we're going to boolean together these two pieces and fix the mesh as we have done before. This is the easiest piece of the build here, really. We could have stopped this video after 10 minutes, really. But I wanted to get as much as I can of the handlebars done in one video, which then included the stem, which is the bit which holds the handlebars. The great part about 3D is learning about stuff that you maybe don't have so much interest in. The stem, that little box we're going to build, and then underneath on BMX bikes you have a special little widget where you should be able to rotate the handlebars without the brake cables getting twisted and tied. So there's a little gadget called, which I've now learned, a gyro. So I've been watching videos about gyros, how they work. Not so much because I care how they work. I mean, a little bit interested I am, but you need to know how they sit on the bike. And videos of people restoring these things are actually great resources for visuals and references. Here we're just trying to clean up the geometry as nice as we can. Really just playing it by the hip here, trying to find quads, space out the geometry, try not to distort too much from the original shapes we have. And this is very much just experience. Also going to try and space out the loops a little bit. We can do a nice job here, but we also have to think in real life these are two pieces of metal which are welded together, so we don't really need to care too much about the reflections, because in real life the reflections probably suck quite bad around here anyway. Here we see me taking things way too far as normal. I mean, I could cut a lot of this out, really. I mean, I could show just how you generally make it, pause the video, take over with my fixes, but I mean, I like to show what I do to get produce the models. Here you can see we have like it's sticking out a little bit of a joint, so we're trying to just get this flow back. So it looks pretty good. Now we lean on our symmetries to try and get the other side here. The model isn't completely centered, so we fix it a little bit by hand here. Just check the sizing. So now we add the stem here. I did a bit of a deep dive to try and find the best stem, or the most what looks nicest. This one is, I think, the original, which came with a bike. I think it's called the mallet stem. I saw a few others which look quite nice also. Some would have been very simple. I think we could have got it done in maybe 10 to 15 minutes, just a little bit of a curved cube. But this one looked more fun. First of all, it's the original, and I think if we're going to make this bike, maybe it's a good idea to make original parts. Which I'm already contradicting myself, because I think I took the Tomahawk Mag's rims when I think the original was a different kind of rim, but hey ho. But this stem looked very much more intricate and looked like more of a challenge for building in 3D, so that's why we went for it. And ultimately ended up taking about 50 minutes to build. I was originally considering this piece not adding a subdivision modifier and just trying to go purely on high geometry on the curves, but these holes which were cutting out for the screws and for the handlebars, you would have had quite a lot more geometry to not see the jagged edge. The circles need a little bit more geometry, and I didn't want to go so high. It would have been also a lot more work connecting together all the edges. It's a 3D model I'm gonna sell eventually also, which means I need to take a little bit of care about the topology. You see that we're gonna not so much go for quad topology in all the places here. We're gonna cheat a little bit because it's a square piece. There's no distortion going on, so we can get away with it. But also, if you sell on CD Trader or some of these sites, they like good topology. So we find a mid balance here. We make it using booleans, cheat a little bit with some triangles, and we ultimately use a subdivision modifier, which, if you're going to use this in a some kind of scene or a video from a distance, you can just disable the modifier and then you have basic topology. But if you really want to go for a good close-up, you know, like a beauty render, focusing right on this piece, then it's going to hold up also because we've gone with the subdivision surface. It won't be the case in all the pieces though, because the gyro which sits just below this, I actually made it as a part of this video, but the video ran too long, so I've cut it and we're gonna add it to another future video. But that I decided to go purely on build it hard surface with no subsurface, because you can round the corners using a bevel modifier, and it was not so prominent and visible as this piece. We can take a look at it towards the end of this video, even though we technically have not built it yet. Although we technically have, it's just technically you have not seen it. Here we're going to do this nice little cutout. And for now you can see that it's not rendering so well, it looks like a hole. This will correct itself when we collapse the modifier. It's because we have it even with this surface, the top surface. It's a variation of Z fighting, but it sorts itself out. Here we go for the idea of just adding all the booleans at one go, trying to get our basic shape, and then we start to collapse them and fix the geometry as we go. Here we've just stolen a little bit of geometry from the top. I'm not sure if you can hear a noise in the background here. It is because I have a child playing in the next room, just in case you wonder. Finding time to record in complete silence is not a luxury I have. it's his time also, so we just let him play. Here we try and use the symmetrize function as much as we can, which does mean ultimately we have to take parts of a mesh away, separate the mesh, because some pieces cannot be symmetrized on the z-axis. This the big hole on the side here, the central handlebar hole, that piece here you can see is not centralized on the z-axis. I mean, I probably should have just redone it, but instead I fight with it the whole day. Instead I just separated the pieces and symmetrized up and down and then reattached. But I recommend, if you are following along and building this, just re-center this big circle, because it will make life a lot easier for you. You would not need to do as much work as I ultimately did here. Here we had some extra vertices, not sure where they came from. So here's where we separate to symmetrize these holes. Instead of doing this face 4 times, we do it once and symmetrize to the X, Y and Z. So here you can see we're using the Ngon message, Ngon, the technique of just adding triangles and minimalizing the geometry, which is fine in certain situations. I mean, used very heavily in the game world, and you can get away with it on bigger models because, as I said, some of the trading sites really want good geometry, and if you build your whole model with this geometry, it gets lower ratings versus the quad geometry. But I think they take a percentage, so if generally your model is quad based with some triangulation or Ngons, it's fine. but here I think it's more important that we keep the geometry as low as possible. So you can see this piece already now. We have the smooth angle on the piece, and you can see the faceting on the rounder pieces, which I really did not want to have. Which is why I ultimately wanted to have the subdivision modifier on this piece. The normals are flipped on this object, which is why it was showing as a whole instead of a union. I think maybe it would have been better to do the central piece before the screws. It's not so much more work, but now we have to collapse some the connections. We remove this piece again so we can symmetrize. It was quite ineffective when building this piece actually, because you see I symmetrize quite a few times and then go back and then make changes and then symmetrize again. I don't know if I was maybe in a rush or what the issue is, but the building of this piece was very much not linear. So we test a little bit with this subdivision modifier here to see if we need to make any changes. And we need to sharpen up the edges here. Just make a cut straight on through and just clean up. So here we pretty much have the front piece fixed, and we move on to the back. Which is quite a challenge, but it's fun. It's a fun challenge. It's always good to test yourself to build complex pieces sometimes. In this piece here we don't have any problems with symmetrizing on the z-axis. But we cannot on the x. Here you can see I make a bit of a mistake where I'm dragging the piece just before there's a curve going up to the left, and I drag some vertices around which distorts the curve. We fix it later, but really we should not be dragging just there, as it does destroy the curve that we created earlier. It's easily fixable there. You can see the curve is still there, but we do get some odd reflections. Watching this in after the fact, you do learn how you would do things differently. The central circle which we've just completed, there's like an internal lip just in there, and the easiest, most effective way would have been able to do it right now before we've just did a slice here which we're fixing, and that makes it harder to inset this bigger circle. So going back, I would have done that first. And I think there's a lot of people who record their videos, they edit to the point of perfection maybe. I could have gone back and redid this and released a video showing everything is exact order, but I like to record as I make, and we sit here and we'll discuss the things I would have done better. There's never a point of no return where you completely screwed up a model and you just have to scrap it. There's always a fix, and generally you want to kind of think of the bigger shapes first, and that internal lip is not a bigger shape, it's just like a little addition. We could have skipped it. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure we have a cap on there also at the end, so you don't even see it, I don't think. But it would have been easier to do it first. So this is probably the most challenging piece here to we have this little cutout and we need to have nice geometry supporting loops without too much geometry and without destroying the curve. Just deleting the leftover booleans. So now we go into fix mode. So here you see bottom left, we've got these straight nice curves, which we need to try and keep, but ultimately I think I do destroy them and have to redo them. Here we've also lost a part of the sphere, the circle, so we centralize the cursor in the middle and still geometry and just rotate. So you can see here we rotate these pieces and we get our circle back. I don't think it's something you can really help as a part of the Boolean modifier. See this here, this is what destroys the curve, which is the mistake. And it's not a huge mistake, I mean the curve is still there, we just get some pretty terrible reflections from it. We want really these points to go straight across. So we have our edge loops here. Supporting loops. And we had to modify the subdivision and it looks okay. A little bit better we can do. Fix a little bit of geometry here, clean things up, get some quads back. Remove unnecessary lines. So here you can see we're going to do this little lip inside, and it becomes a bit of a problem just because we have made that cut. But not a huge problem. Just means we need to go in and clean up the geometry a little bit in the slice here. So now we come to the side screws. Sometimes it's easier just to delete half of a mesh and just work on one half. Here we just drag a few slices to the side and we try and deal with them later when we get to the next cutout. And we try to connect some vertices here which are left over from the boolean without destroying the curve. We can move them a little bit. Here, I don't remember if we should really be able to symmetrize on the Z axis, so we don't need to do this by hand. I don't know, maybe I forgot it. Seems that I'm doing this by hand. And I suspect by the time in the next 2 or 3 minutes I'm going to use the symmetrized Z axis anyway, so all this work here is just going to sync together. So these holes look quite fine. So now on to the last boolean. Here you can see we just do a complete face connection. And it looks terrible, and the reason behind that is that the boolean wasn't flat, I don't think. You can do these connections as long as the surface is completely flat. So we go in and we delete it, and then I use the loop tools flatten selection, and then we redo it and it works fine. So you can see it's a little bit distorted. It's quite clear here that surface is not flat. Knowing what you can collapse and what curves you need to maintain is you just need to kind of remember when you use your boolean. Here we use the flatten selection. You have to remember what your booleans are trying to achieve, and just make sure you don't delete any of the points which are assisting the curve. There's certain points where you've just dragged vertices and connected them somewhere, and they're just completely arbitrary. You don't really need them in a specific place, but some are structurally important. So now you can see we have this nice flat surface. Here we're just trying to fix the subsurface modifier. You can see on the corner of these cuts that it's crossing over. It is trying to curve when it should not be curving. We need to add some loops to tell the modifier where it should be going. So now it's looking quite good. Need a few more edge loops on the outside here. Now we try and connect the whole piece. We flatten them on the x-axis so they're all in the right position, and then start to fix. Somewhere along the way they have been moved on the x-axis, so they're not lining up anymore. So I mean, when you see me build these things, I'm not the ultimate builder here. I mean, this is how I've achieved the effect. My videos are mainly to show my process, show how I go about building things, but I'm developing all the time. I'm changing my tactics all the time, getting better. Everybody should be getting better. Even looking at this, you know, recording with voiceover, I found about 10-15 different things I would change and do better. A lot of things to do with 3D modeling is maybe planning and experience, knowing when you've built something before and you know what errors are going to occur. I mean, of course, if you're doing this for the first time, you're going to be completely lost because you don't know what problems are going to come up. But the more you do it, the more experience you get, the better you will get. So this is also to defend myself. People looking at this modelling process thinking, what the hell is this guy doing? Yeah, I probably agree with you. I feel if I sat down and did this again, I could probably do it twice as fast, and having known the pitfalls. I mean, for a start, I would centralise that circle to the left here, and then that would save us half of the amount of time. I think somewhere in my brain I must have thought, it's not a problem, we can work by it. It's just going to take a couple of minutes to disconnect. But when you get through the modelling process, you see how much time it's actually taken to navigate around the issue. We are all eternal optimists. So now we're checking a little bit on the reflections. And you can see this top corner here. This is where we see it does look not, and you can see with geometry it's quite obvious why the issue is. I think I do ultimately go back and fix it. I'm not sure if I fix it on camera. Now we're trying to add a bolt, which is a little bit like the reference. We do find it eventually. And then we do some modifications because these bolts are quite well made, but I mean, you can cut down on the geometry a little bit on them. I mean, I almost never show the thread of the bolt, so that's normally the first thing I do. I go in and I take away any geometry which is not going to be visible. So quite a lot of vertices for something you're not going to see. So last couple of screws and then we're there. So yeah, looking good. Okay, so here we are in Blender, and we have now textured the piece. If we go into texture mode here, so we can have a little look. Yeah, quite happy with it. Looks quite good. We can see here, this is the gyro, and this is what we'll be building quite soon. Quite a complex, well, it's not so complex. It looks complex, but it's not. There is very simple geometry here, and a lot of the texturing is doing work here. You can see fairly simple screws. So we will get to that quite soon. Handlebars look fine. Did some welding here in Toolbag. Little bit of paint chipping here, which actually does look quite odd. And then also in the screws here, I went for a little bit of text, but the pixel textile the UV maps are a little bit too poor to get any good text. But I mean, from this distance here, this is what we need. We don't need any more detail on those screws. You can see the same thing. If we go to the side here, it does the job. Try to get some dirt map in here. I think I've went maybe a little bit too clean. You can see here, I've gone for a little bit of dust and grime. I really don't want this bike to look too old and beaten up, but I do not want it to look as if it's unused either. So it's hard to see, but there's definitely dirt and grime going on here, especially if we can get, you can see here, and right now we have a white paint on here, but if you come in here, we have quite a lot of small surface damage. It's just not being shown up because of a white paint, but we will be going and doing a few different colors. I really like the hot pink to this bike, and also the silver, and there's also a black variation. So these textures are very much placeholders for now, and we will be coming back and try to make it a little bit better. You can see here, maybe this is closer to the level we want to go to. It's a little bit more dirt. And there's definitely a difference between how it looks in Toolbag and how it looks in Blender. So I really feel like I need to maybe pump up a little bit the dirt in Marmoset and try and get it into here. But I mean, it's good. It's a good start. This bike is gonna turn out quite nice. We had the rims here. So far we've come, and they're looking pretty good also. Again, maybe a little bit more dirt and grime. I think we're really gonna have to wait and see at the end. I don't think there's any more stuff we've done. So there you go. I think next time we're out, I'll add the gyro. Maybe do the forks here, and I think after we need to get in the saddle, it's going to make a big difference. And then there's a load of just small things like the brakes. I guess are going to be quite an interesting event. But yeah, so there we are. Hope you've liked the video. Comment, follow, check me out, and I'll see you in the next one.